Welcome back to our annual installation of Live Show at Lucas Oil Stadium, Jason. How does it feel being back after a year off?
Oh, why do you even... It's a pain point. Like, I don't see what you gain from bringing that up. But I do feel great. We're sitting again on the 50-yard line of Lucas Oil Stadium.
I was going to refute that it's just a pain point, because coming back, it's sweeter. It was better this year to do it together than it was to do it on my own last year under the circumstances.
I mean, I would hope so. Like, what kind of friend would you be if that wasn't the case?
All right, I take it back.
I'm Hunter Pence, and you're listening to the Misplay podcast. Oh, yeah.
Hello, and welcome to the Misplay, where we give up trying to build full houses in chasing flushes. My name is Mark.
My name is Jason. Poker Peril?
Poker Peril.
There's your Misplay.
I thought it was a great little game.
I thought I dominated you. I'm very salty about that, but talk about your Misplay.
We played this game called Poker Peril in Lucas Oil Stadium, not far from where we're recording. And yesterday you had said, I just want to go find a game to play. So we were here for a minute, and I happened to meet Andrew Wood, the designer for Poker Peril, and he was nice enough to teach me his game while he was running his tournament. It's a poker-based game where you play with a deck of cards. You try to build different poker hands. When Jason and I sat down to play heads up, as we want to do, I was on a build flushes plans, and Jason wound up on a build full houses plans, because full houses win, right? That's how poker works.
That is how it works.
And I was torn because I had a secret card that made my flushes better. But I also had cards that were better full houses than what Jason was building. And so I chased the flushes, and I lost most of the hands because Jason ran good and hit full houses a lot.
I ran incredible. I don't know if I ran better playing Poker Peril or Eschaton, but I ran well this weekend.
I'm glad you had a good time.
I had a great time. We are here doing our live show in Lucas Oil Stadium in honor of meeting PJ from Meeple to Meeple in the First Exposure Playtest Hall this morning. We decided that we were going to sit down, no outline. We don't generally have a script for the show, but we have an outline, and I usually have some prepared things that I want to make sure I say. There's nothing in front of me right now.
How does that make you feel?
A little nervous, but it's a live show. You know, I think that's just a different expectation for the audience. I don't know if they expect exactly the same thing. We can probably, as PJ might say, have a much better and fluid conversation about our experience at Gen Con this year, because there is so much to talk about. The only thing I'm stressing about is, like, where do we start? Like, there's so much that I want to talk about right now. We know that we're going to talk a lot about Gen Con today. That's all we're going to talk about. But in our follow-up episode, when we get back to San Francisco, we will again debrief. We have a bunch of audio from playtesters throughout the week, and we'd like to incorporate and think about some of the feedback that we've gotten this week.
Since we're going to talk about the feedback that we got, I think it makes sense to save talking about the game and kind of next steps in the project plan. You know, this is the first time that we've really sat down, and I feel like it's the first time that I've sat down and had a minute to breathe since we got here. It's been a jam-packed weekend. Why don't we share what we were looking for, what we got, and maybe a little bit of what's next?
What's next? You're going back to the script, Mark, from Season 2. Yes, but before we do any of that, this week's episode is brought to you by Board Game Casual. Board Game Casual is a YouTube channel welcoming people into the board game hobby with video reviews, recommendations, tips for accessorizing on a budget, and more. I'm thinking about Board Game Casual and the content they would be able to create if they came to Gen Con. I think it would be pretty cool to see, especially with their framing on identifying and finding local designers or small designers and giving them a little bit of a platform. I think Board Game Casual will put out some amazing content here at Gen Con. Give Board Game Casual a view on YouTube at Board Game Casual channel.
It's tough being off script.
It was close. I think I got most of that vocab correctly. The Thing?
Where are we?
There's got to be something, right?
No, you said no outline, no nothing. Just go.
Let's start with First Exposure Playtest Hall. This was our second year for you. I wasn't here last year in the First Exposure Playtest Hall. This year I was. Tell me what was different, because we haven't talked about that, what that experience was like. Because if you think back to where we were last year, the game was called Currents. The tile placements were a little different. I don't remember.
Stacking still existed in the game.
Stacking, you were testing stacking?
I think the biggest difference, there were two. The first one is the way that our testers responded on site to the game this year. There was like a twinkle in their eye. There was this immediate kind of breath and pause when they looked at Zeta's art. I can't say how like proud of the artwork I am in enough ways. That was one of my favorite things to watch, was that first response from playtesters.
I'm glad you started there, because there is absolutely no question for Zeta that the number one thing that we heard is the artwork is beautiful. If you had a list of all the praise that we got throughout the week, and we got some thorns we'll talk about too in a future episode, but if you take all of the praise that we got this week, so much of that was the artwork.
The other thing was we were testing mechanics last year. We were not really testing mechanics this year. We were really looking at rulebook and quality of life. The debrief with the players was really different this year than it was last year.
Let's talk about the beginning. The beginning was my favorite part. I don't know how you felt, Mark, when I was doing the intro. I like setting the scene. I like doing that. And I think often we talk about board game design and we say, we're not telling people how to build a board game, we're telling people how we built ours. But I do think, I honestly, I think we're getting to the point where we've learned a lot. And I think it's okay to say, I think it's a good idea when people sit down at the table, you have everybody introduce yourself, right? You go around the table and you have everybody say, hi, my name is, where I'm from. It doesn't have to be a lot. But I think creating that kind of community atmosphere at the table, it's also good for me because I'm writing down the names. I want to refer to people by names. I don't want to be like, yeah, they did that. I want to be able to say, Garrett did that, or Ashley, that was a really good play. I really like that move. I think doing those things is important. I think that's something board game designers should do. And then I got the launch into talking about our story a little bit, the Misplay podcast, and how we have developed over 3 years, and then kind of set the scene by talking about where we're at right now with the pre-production copies and what our goal was to get to Kickstarter and to hopefully have people follow our Kickstarter campaign. And in the First Exposure Playtest Hall this year, we did blind playtests. All 4 of our sessions, we did blind playtests. Just for the audience, if anybody doesn't know what a blind playtest is, that is when you're just taking a game off the shelf and you bring it home and you set it down and you have to teach yourself how to play it. So we didn't tell our playtesters anything about the game. We told them about ourselves, but we didn't tell them anything about the game. And we got to watch them read the rules, set up the game, and play. What did you see that stood out to you?
I was really trying to be attentive to the way that players use the rulebook. I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much. I thought the rulebook was generally quite effective at disseminating the information that players needed to play. Even when there was a player that would miss something, usually their partner would catch the piece that they had missed. And so with the rulebook in hand, players were most of the time able to play the game without any significant breaks.
Of the 8 playtests, I think there was only one, right, where had you not said something, it wouldn't have functioned the way we wanted to function. I think that's right. Now, also recognize that the people who come to the First Exposure Playtest Hall are not necessarily your average board gamer, right? Your average board gamer isn't necessarily coming to Gen Con. So there's something to that as well. It's just worth pointing out.
Sure.
But yeah, it was amazing that just about every one of our games, they read the rules, they set it up, they lined up their cards correctly, and it played in, I kept telling people the average was about 23 minutes reading the rules, playing the game, and I mean, it was spot on.
So I think that was kind of I guess that would be the rose. We did a lot of roses and thorns this weekend. It was one of our debrief questions that we asked. So I guess one of the roses for me from the rulebook would be that it was generally good enough that the correct information was disseminated and players were able to play the game. And then we got a lot of great feedback about the rulebook too. So I guess, mission accomplished. There's some sequencing things that I think we go back and relook at. There's language that we want to relook at.
I want to highlight Christopher, who wasn't one of our board game playtesters, but was just in the hall, and he was there early, and he came over and he looked at our game, and he mentioned what he did, and I said, wow, would you look at our rule book? And he fixed the mistake, Mark, and I'm not calling anybody out. I would never have caught this, but there was an issue with the yellow picture, the yellow tile in the rotating picture that was driving me nuts. I looked at the rule book several times and I go, that picture just doesn't feel right to me. There's something, I don't get it. That doesn't look like it's rotating correctly. And he was able to tell me what it was. The tile had to be rotated in the picture as well. So it's just like, wow, it's just like having people, and that's what he does. Like, that's his thing. Like, he's really into helping people and doing rulebook design, and having somebody do that and see that was great. And you just like, you need to get your things in front of so many people.
We also got great feedback about some of the aesthetic presentation of the rulebook from one of our last playtesters, Elliot. She wants the rulebook to be prettier.
No question, so do I. We just haven't gotten to it yet. You know, that's one of our big tasks when we get back, is sitting down with Zeta, sitting down with Scott, and figuring out how can we do it. There's beautiful rule books out there. Again, like, no, what was Zeta's? No shade, no tea, shade.
No tea, no shade.
Something. Scott has done like amazing work. Scott is like, we are so thankful to have Scott as part of the project. So when we're talking about the rule book, we gave him about 4 hours to put together the rule book, and it functions beautifully. It's really great. I love what he's done and what he was able to do with it. The highlight, of course, for me, Mark, was at the same table at our very last this morning in the Playtest Hall. We were fortunate enough to have, from the Meeple to Meeple podcast, I saw him in the room, and I went over and I said hello ahead of time, and I just wanted to say, hey, PJ, I enjoy your show. I just wanted to meet you. Hello, you're doing great work. And he saw what table I'd come from. He's like, oh, we were thinking about playing Under One Sky. And I was like, that was enough. I was like, yeah, that's just the fact that you were even thinking about that is awesome. And then they, actually I don't know how selection works, Mark, but they did select our game, I believe. I think you have choice when you're called over. Is that how it works?
I think so. When I played as a player last year, they were looking for extra players, and so I just threw up my hand and took whatever was given to me. But I do think if you pre-register, you can see the names of the games and maybe the description that you submit, and then you get to have some say in what you play.
Gotcha. So we were super fortunate to have PJ and his partner sit down with us, not only play, give feedback, go beyond and talk to us about all kinds of different aspects of the game and the design and community building, which is really important to PJ. We got PJ to talk to us a little bit on microphone, something we're going to share on our Kickstarter page. Katie and PJ were kind enough to take a photo with us. So for me, that was my highlight. That was my highlight, to be able to sit. And it was kind of like the banter we had, the conversation that we had between the four of us, and also Patrick and Elliot at the same table. That experience was just so great.
First Exposure Playtest Hall wasn't the only place that we got to test the game. This was our first year trying to run events, or getting a chance to run events.
And I said at every event, Mark, you're going to hear me say it again, like I've said it all week at all 6 of our events. I said the first thing we did when we met people who came to our table was, what's your name? Where are you from? How did you find us was the question. And I was blown away that even one person signed up because we were the Misplay and they knew us, right? So there's one there. Hello, Alex. And everybody else that had signed up found us because they looked through the Gen Con, the event catalog, which isn't something I do. Because when I use the catalog, I just find what I want to play. Container, I look for Container, I find out where it is, and then I sign up. I want to play Space, I look for Space, I sign up if I can. I don't scroll through it. And it was really cool to hear people say that they found us because they were just scrolling through and it looked good to them.
It looked good, and I think the name is good. The title of the game is good. We got a lot of people that came through and said, I picked this game because of the name.
Somebody said they would buy the game because of this name. I mean, that's just so cool.
Well, and then there were the people who came by later and walked by the art and said, oh, I walked by, this looks pretty, I would have bought this because it's so pretty.
Yeah, back to the art. We're not going to be able to avoid talking about the art on this episode.
It's too good. It's not too good. It's beautiful.
So at the events, we didn't do blind play tests because people had paid to be there, and we wanted to make sure they got. Didn't want it to feel like a little bit of work, and it was a shorter amount of time. It was only an hour, and so for the event, we did the teach, and then we did the play, and then everybody played it at least a second time, and then we got some feedback. And with the events and the First Exposure Playtest Hall, we made sure to capture everyone's name and email who wanted to provide it. Should they back the Kickstarter, we offered all of those people free shipping as like a token of our appreciation. Our goal, right, doing these events was to get ourselves more exposure. We wanted to get ourselves out there in front of more people, for more people to see not only Under One Sky and the beautiful art, but also our podcasts, right? So we have the big banner up, the Misplay podcast. We always talked about that. Our hope has always been the story we're telling on the podcast will, lead to people being interested in the game that we're building. Our objective, as I said, was to get exposure, and our goal was to have people scan our QR code and follow us on Kickstarter. That was the metric that we were tracking, that we felt was, if we were going to push somebody anywhere, push them to the Kickstarter page, follow us. Our goal was 100. We did fall short.
Where did we finish?
We're not quite done. We're still here. It's Sunday. There's a little bit of time left. We are at 68. We started, I think on the last episode, we had said 38 or 39 we were at. We were doing pretty close to 10 a day. It falls short of what we wanted. But what would you say? I have lots of internal thoughts, but curious how you feel, because you have a different perspective than I do regarding, I think, metrics and business. And
Behaviorland is really rooted in kind of like the empirical numbers in the data. So I value when you're like, oh, we have a criteria of wanting to hit 100 followers while we're here. I think that's valuable, but there's also a growing movement in Behaviorland of the qualitative piece is also important, and I think the quality of the connections and interactions and community contact that we had, just kind of by the nature of being at Gen Con, is of a higher quality. Not that the people at Gen Con are higher quality than people who are going to find us outside of it, but quality in that I think the people at Gen Con are looking for games to play. How many times at the tables did someone sit down and be like, this is a great little 2-player game, and it's really hard for us to put our regular gaming group together, and we just want to play with the person that we have the easiest access to.
Yeah, and that went back to the event, because the way the events are set up, we put it in as a 2-player game, and so many people sat down and told us we struggle to find a good 2-player game. So people are looking for 2-player games, which isn't really something I was thinking about. I liked somebody's comment was, a lot of games say 2 to 4 players or 2 to 6 players, but they don't function well at 2 most times. Our game only functions at 2.
Look at Eschaton, right? I predominantly play 2-player games, and I just bought Eschaton. It's my game for the year. And
loved it, by the way.
I also loved it, but I'm not going to play it with just 2 people.
I thought we were going to play it on the plane on the way back. Can you imagine trying to put that out?
You better build the playingcards.io room real fast.
You're absolutely right about the quality and the numbers, because if you think about, I think, a really big Kickstarter, let's say they have 10,000 people following them, the conversion rate on that is tiny. It's very small, which is why you need so many people. But ours is because ours are our friends and our family and people we've met in person, right? There's not many people who followed us who have not met us. And we have built that, hopefully, connection with people, and that our conversion rate on those 68 people is not going to be the normal, 2 to 4%. It's going to be much higher. Nonetheless, we still we still want to get it out there and get more people to see it as we build towards our Kickstarter in September. One of the best things, probably following the events, this is the thing we were talking about, is it going to work? We wanted to have tournaments in the lobby, and we wanted to set up a sign that says, beat the designer, win a copy of the game. On the first night, Mark, we had a couple of tournaments. We had the board that was made by AJ that was beautiful. There's pictures on Blue Sky. You can take a look at it. AJ made us a tournament board that we used in the lobby, and we had people walking by, and we were able to pull in a couple of groups. We ran a couple of tournaments where we gave away copies of the game.
Presuming that the game funds.
Correct. We always gave the caveat. It was like, yeah, win a free game if the game funds. It felt a little weird to say that, but it's just the reality. Like, we would love to do this for you. I'd love to send you a free copy. We'll ship it to you. But the game does have to fund.
They all walked away. They all had a good time. It was really interesting to see a larger group come in, take a look at the game, break down into groups of 2, play the game, come together, and have kind of like this communal experience under one sky. A communal experience under our sky.
Under our sky. It makes me think of back in the hall, the lights. Every time I looked up, I was seeing the patterns above us. So I always felt like we were under one sky while we were sitting there in our events.
Lots of rocket ship.
And in addition to having the tournament, on different nights, I was sitting and you were sitting in the lobby. We sat in the open ballroom in the JW Hotel, and we put up a sign that said, beat the designer, win a copy of the game. And, several people beat us and won copies of the game.
It was really fun. It was also just neat to have people come in, again, take a glance at the game and be like, this looks good enough to sit down and play. Even if you're not spending your money on it yet, spending your time on it when there's so much to do at Gen Con is also kind of humbling.
Yeah, like who would play pinball?
Pinball was a lot busier than us.
That's true. Pinball made way more money than we did.
You've touched on it a little bit, but outside of promoting the game, trying to build the Kickstarter following, you let off real strong with PJ from Meeple to Meeple, but this convention really was about, for me, seeing us as members of the wider community in the familiar faces that we saw or new connections that we were able to establish. There was just a lot of face-to-face with people around us and in the gaming space and in the community, in the Bay and in other places, that was really meaningful to the sense of belonging to the gaming community.
And another super highlight there was sitting down with Drew from Small Time Heroes, who had previously we spoke to on the podcast. Drew was nominated for a Dice Tower Award, and he was brought in by Gabe Barrett of the Board Game Design Lab. But Drew had reached out to me. He said on Discord, hey, I'm coming in. Can I, I'd love to meet up with you guys. And Drew not only found us, he sat down and talked to us. He not only played our board game, he also played Devil's Dice with us, which is created by a friend of ours from the Bay Area, Brooke. And I sat there and I was talking to Drew, and I was just like, this is just such a great moment, like having this conversation with you and talking about board game design. And you're right, Mark. I have slowly felt like there's this community that we are a part of, and it's not just a community, right? It's like sitting down and talking with Ron from the Golden Gate Game Makers in the open ballroom, or meeting up with them to play a game, or you talk to them at the pub. Other game designers walking by us in the First Exposure Playtest Hall who know us. You talk to
the designers from Get Gnomed. We were table buddies last year at the First Exposure Playtest Hall, and they recognized us. And so they stopped by, said hello. They were in the position that we're in this year. They were just getting ready for their Kickstarter. They just finished fulfillment. They had just received their copies of the game. They got 10-day notice that they were going to be able to have a booth at Gen Con, and they had a booth this year, and they were selling Get Gnomed, from First Exposure Playtest Hall to having a booth.
The people here at Gen Con, they have been incredible. And I worry that if I try to name them all, I'm going to forget some. I'm thinking about Calvin Calvin, who joined us for our game of Eschaton in the open ballroom, and Calvin was a game designer as well, and Calvin played our game. Calvin showed us his game, Jar of Dice. I met John from Renegade Studios. I was standing in line at Starbucks, and immediately John in front of me had struck up a conversation just about, how it's going, what he was doing. He started asking about, things I was doing, and not only did he bought me a Starbucks, which is so nice. He gave me some time and some advice. He's a business. Not only is he an RPG game designer, but he also works at a university and teaches business. And he was talking about things that we can be doing, even with like the LLC. Like, it was the wealth of information and the different type of people that I got to meet and talk to this week has just been incredible. And I have to shout out JC, who posted on Blue Sky and said, hey, I'm a photographer. I'm going to be at Gen Con. I can come to wherever you are and take photos for 30 minutes. JC came and took some absolutely wonderful photos of us. I rarely like photos that have me in them, but I was really happy not only getting a profile shot for myself. Yours is fantastic, Mark. But there were also some like really great pictures of the game, and JC was just a wonderful person to talk to.
Even just like walking by and seeing people that we've met or encountered or had touch points with, Leone from Biome has exploded.
Leone, how did I not? Leone on the floor, right?
Publishing other people's games, booth like in a great spot in the exhibitor hall. Marceline from High Tide that we played and that you have from last year was organizing a little game market in the JW Marriott. Just seeing like echoes of the future that could be, depending on what the future holds for us.
I think we said, or if we haven't said yet, we're going to talk more about the specific feedback that we got from Under One Sky on the next episode. Let me ask you, Mark, we said coming to this Gen Con, we said it was going to be more work, that this Gen Con wasn't going to feel like maybe our first one. There was some work the first time we came because we were thinking about the things we wanted to do, but we didn't run any events the first time we came. We weren't in the First Exposure Playtest Hall. It wasn't until the last day when I walked in and said, what is this room? That led to everything that I think that's happened now here at Gen Con for the last 2 years. Did it feel different because we came with a different mindset? There were times where I just wish I was playing a game, right? There were, but we were trying to put our best foot forward and put our game out there and in front of as many people as we could in our, I think, and I've said it, our organic way. We're not pushy. We're not doing ShamWow commercials on late night TV.
I think that's true, and some of that's by design, right? We talked more this week about the possibility of how big a disservice to ourselves are we doing by not being on Instagram. I don't know that we're ever going to get into that, but it's something that we, behind the scenes, have grappled with.
Yep.
We've talked about it a little bit on the show.
Yeah, and you know what that reminds me of is I feel like next year, the podcast is just us while we're walking in the hallway and recording, because the conversations, because we were constantly walking from one event to the next or setting down our stuff, so we weren't carrying it around between events. So we were really fortunate, really privileged to be able to stay at the JW Hotel that has the crosswalk connected to the convention center. So we're always walking, up and down the stairs through the hallway, and our conversations, Mark, I wish we just had the microphones running all the time. That would have been the podcast, just our conversations through the hallway. You trying to tell me what LARPing was, for example, is a whole segment, because I want a foam sword now. I want a foam sword and I want to battle.
You can go buy one. They have them in the exhibitor hall.
Again, and I'm sure there's a community in the Bay Area where I can, rank up, level up, and hit people with a sword. Or I was trying to figure out how you do magic spells. Like, how does a mage throw their fireball, right, if they're just carrying a staff? You had a good idea.
Dodgeball.
Right? You're limited in how many you can carry. I don't know what the rules of LARPing. I don't even know if that is LARPing, as you were telling me. We had different definitions of what live action role play might actually be. But those hallway conversations were so fun. What's another one? What's another one that you remember we talked about?
I'm having a hard time grabbing another specific story where it's like, oh, this would have been good podcast material. But I will say, I think something that was absent from our conversations this year was grappling with whether or not we fit, belong, or what our positioning in being here is. Having a game to show that we're going to start selling in a little bit under a month or a little bit over a month, in my head, changes the way that I position myself in the ecosystem of Gen Con.
This was supposed to be a fun conversation, Mark. You know, I had let's talk about all the cool hallway stuff, the fun stories, all my business ideas that I had for Gen Con about opening up a podcast booth here in Lucas Oil Stadium, right? Or we could have a room where people can store stuff. I had lots of fun things to talk about. Now you're bringing me down. You're bringing me down.
Why? My stance is very uplifting. We belong here.
Oh, that's where you're going with
We
that.
didn't talk about those things.
I thought you were going to talk about, I thought where you wanted to go with this conversation was maybe we're not quite ready to go to Kickstarter. I thought that's where you're going. So
I think that we have to talk about in a more systematic debrief. I think we
Business?
I think we have to ask that question. But I don't think that wasn't my point.
Okay,
It wasn't what
all right.
I was trying to accomplish.
Restate your point for me.
Oh God. My point is, the first year we were here and at other conventions that we've gone to, there will inevitably be a spot where we're walking together and I will say to you, Jason, I don't know that I belong here. I don't know that, sitting here, you're wearing a game designer tag on your badge. I'm still not, but I'm also not walking through the halls saying, I'm an imposter, I don't belong here, I am not a game designer, this is not for me. I'm a consumer here. I am not a active, engaged participant in the creative side of board gaming.
Why do you feel our experiences are different? Because I'm on the other side. I feel like I'm wearing the ribbon. I feel like I am. What do you think the difference is?
You feel like imposter still?
No.
We're saying the same thing.
You're not wearing the badge. I'm so confused by this conversation. You're saying you feel like you belong.
Yes.
Look, I would love Discord to weigh in. I felt, again, like you were saying, you didn't. And so I was trying to peel back and try to understand why. You said you weren't wearing the badge. I'm wearing the badge, so there's a difference between us. I thought you were highlighting the differences.
No, I'm not wearing the badge, but I don't feel like I am an imposter. I don't feel like I don't belong. Okay, I have a great
I'm
story.
hearing you correctly now.
I have a great story now about stories about passing through the hallways. Once upon a time, we tried to have Jason read a rule book about how to play a game. It didn't work.
I was supposed to. You're talking about Eschaton, right?
Eschaton. There was something else too. What else did we play? Avarice? I guess that was the teach though. We sat down for demos of different games this time, and every time Jason would sit, be looking like he was very attentive to what was being said in the rules, and then have absolutely no idea what was happening in the game.
I think you're thinking of Alex's game.
Yes.
In the hotel. Alex brought a game called Territories. Actually, I should say his wife came way out of her way. And was very patient and kind and hung out with us while Alex taught us how to play Territories. But it's not a reflection of Alex's game. It is a reflection of how I learned board games. I am not the person who looks at the rule book and understands how to play. I'm not the person who hears the rules being explained to me and understands how to play. I learn by watching, right? I need to watch that YouTube video, or I need to just have somebody teach me how to play it, and then I want to play it again, right? Think about Eschaton. Right? I won that game. I should not have won that game. I knew the least about that game.
Wow, humble brag much?
Yeah. But I said to you, even before I knew it was very clear I was going to win, that I want to play again. And I said to you, I'd really enjoy this on my fourth run because I'll pick up more every single time. That's just how it works for me. And I think about that with my students in the classroom. Everybody needs to be reached. Everybody has different modalities and needs to be reached a different way. And for me, it's just like trial by fire. I just need to keep doing it. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just amazing at Eschaton. I don't know.
Now I feel kind of bad for picking on you.
Oh, for explaining where I'm at, yeah. Good. Because usually it's me picking on you. So we're not even close to being even.
What are you taking home? I'm taking home Eschaton. I've been talking about it for a year. I finally put my money where my mouth is. What are you bringing home from Gen Con?
Well, I'm going to start by saying I'm bringing home a copy of Small Time Heroes from Drew, which I am thrilled about. It's a beautiful game. I haven't, though, it's Sunday, I haven't made my final one-game purchase. I'm going to buy one game. The first year that I came, I bought the solo version of Gloomhaven. Last year I had you pick up a copy of High Tide for me. You brought that back to me, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know yet. I'm gonna make one more pass through the main event hall before we leave today, and I'm gonna pick up a game. I was thinking of trying to find a game that might be fun to play with my kids.
I was gonna say, you're not gonna buy the rulebook for a LARP?
I might buy a foam sword if I could get it into my check luggage. I might buy a foam sword.
Buy a foam dagger.
I'm not a rogue. I'm not a rogue. I'm a warrior. I'm out in the front lines. I'm a hero. Small time.
Small time hero.
Yeah. How about you? Well, you already said, right, the one game that you're bringing home. I'm carrying it home. It's in my check luggage.
Well, I'm carrying Small Time Heroes home.
Yeah, okay, we're even.
My box is bigger.
Mark and I were just trying to figure out how we could, we're limited on the things because we brought all of the equipment. I brought the tripod. I brought the banner. I bought the tablecloth. I bought 3 copies of the game, promotional materials. There's only so much, United lets me bring on. And we were kind of juggling how we can get it all back.
We made it, though. Everything's packed.
Surely we left something.
I don't believe that's true. I want to come back to your question because I never really answered you when you said it felt like work, and you described why you thought it was going to be that way. I think, yes, this year did feel like work, but I also want to reflect on it and look at it in the context that PJ promotes, where he's talking about it's really about the community. It's really about that interpersonal connection, regardless of audience size or success on Kickstarter, dollars raised, all of these like ancillary metrics that are important to the business piece, but not necessarily central to the human experience or the personal experience. This year did feel like more work, but I was so much happier here, and I had fun last year, but it was so much nicer and more fun to do what we set out to do together because we had set out to do it together with you being here this year.
I like hearing that, Mark. Obviously, it warms my heart. You've always been the sentimental one of the two of us. And I had talked about it with PJ and you and Katie, and it's this idea of what is success, right? And I've been worried we're not going to get there. But what is success? Something we'll continue to talk about in the future and what that looks like. We wanted to get the triple digits, right? I was anxious about that. It didn't happen. Actually, I don't feel bad. I don't feel like, we didn't do a good enough job. Are there things we could have done better? Absolutely. I think about one of the things that I could have done better was more forward planning, thinking about Gen Con. I really didn't get down to the nuts and bolts until a couple of weeks before. The ribbons, right? I would have loved to have made the ribbons that we were talking about that people can wear on their badges with the code or our name. But overall, I'm not leaving Gen Con anxious, stressed, or thinking we're not going to make it. We do or we don't. I'm going to keep trying to do the best that I can do within the means that I have to make this project successful.
I think that as means of relieving that kind of anxiety for you, that relief for me comes in a different form of work in community is lighter than work in isolation. And this weekend has been work in community, which is a lighter thing to carry.
What can you say to follow that up?
The Misplay podcast is brought to you by Howley Boy Games. We recognize any level of support here on our list of sponsors. If you'd like to become a featured sponsor of the show, find our form at themisplay.com/sponsors.
Mic drop.
Would the Gen Con Championship top 8 players please report to the area near Table 1?
I'll be right back, Mark. I have to go and report to Table 1. now that I'm top 8.
Oh, congratulations. What game? How'd your space-based tournament go?
Oh, can we not talk about that?